What's up, everyone? My name is Blue, and we are back with some more malicious compliance stories, following the rules to make people look like fools. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. And with that, let's get into it. Mock Senate debate? Then you'd better stick to the rules. So, I'm in a college communications class of 50 people, not including our teacher. For our midterm, we were to become the U.S. Senate. The class would vote on several classroom measures, with the goal being to communicate professionally whilst demonstrating competent debate strategies. My teacher often sticks to his word, and we really did make a cool little Senate, complete with dress codes, a candy desk, a gavel, and a flag. This is important to note because the teacher wanted our Senate to be as accurate as possible. We were debating several measures, all created by us, the students. 1. Hats should only be allowed in the classroom if they are cowboy hats. Passed, 39-11. 2. We should be able to wear pajamas to class. Passed, 48-2. And finally, number 3. Fidget and stim toys should not be allowed in the classroom. You'll find out how that went. I use fidget toys because I have ADHD. They're all pretty silent, and the person who wrote this bill has it out for me because I get accommodations like extra time and earphones that no one else does. Since we are allowed to talk as long as we desire about any measure, I get comfortable in my seat, since we are all remote, and begin to talk. 5 minutes pass, then 10, then 20, and my professor interrupts. The very last brain cell, you've talked too long. Give someone else a turn. I look him dead in the eye. No. The look on his face. I politely explained that, since this was a Senate, I was allowed to filibuster, as in, delay a vote simply by talking us out of time. The other classmates looked at him. He turned red and spluttered, but allowed me to proceed. Grades are based on individual performance, so I knew I wasn't harming anyone but myself. Everyone else had already spoken enough. So my ADHD ass, the one always scolded for talking too much, successfully filibustered the remaining hour and 36 minutes of our midterm. As for the fallout, my classmate's bill died on delivery, and I got a B+. Let that be inspiration to any of you out there who've ever been told you talk too much. Go run for Senate. It'll come in handy. Boy Scout turned the tables on us. Not sure if it is really malicious, but here comes a story from way back when I was a Boy Scout leader for a group of 14 to 15-year-old boys. Whenever a new guy went to his first jamboree, we would often send him away to search for a smoke turner. Pretty much the same way others are tasked with getting some blinker fluid. Everybody understood what was going on and kept sending the poor fellow on. Usually they clued in at the third stop or so. But one time, we had a clever boy whose first jamboree was a huge thing with 4,000 to 5,000 participants and a 60-40 split gender-wise. So, there were a lot of Girl Scouts attending the same jamboree. We did as we usually did and sent him out to look for a smoke turner so we wouldn't get smoke in our eyes. And off he went. After some time, we realized he hadn't returned, and he'd been gone for almost 3 hours. On a smaller jamboree, that wasn't a big deal. We would easily find them somewhere. But this thing covered a lot of ground, and us leaders were getting a bit stressed about finding our guy. This was before cell phones were common amongst the teenagers in our group. Eventually, just before our worry became bad enough to call in some help, he returned with a huge smile on his face. Turned out he'd clued in to being set up pretty soon. But he was also smart enough to realize he basically had the run of the camp and could spend his time flirting with Girl Scouts. He had pretty much introduced himself to any and all Girl Scout troops he could see and started flirting with the prettiest girls. He even showed us a notebook filled with phone numbers and addresses so he could keep in touch with the girls after the jamboree was over. The rest of the platoon didn't believe him at first, but over the next days, our campground was constantly visited by Girl Scouts from all over the country, and when he introduced them to his fellow platoon mates, we all believed him. Several of our Boy Scouts had their first summer flings that year thanks to this guy's opportunism. I mean, I don't know if there's a merit badge for that kind of a thing, but I feel like they should have made up a merit badge for that kind of a thing. Don't use my bike? Okay, I'll use yours. I am the proud sister to 3 brothers who are 1 year older, then 5 and 7 years younger than me. I've always been the fun sibling to the younger 2. My older brother is more of an introvert, while I'm the bubbly extrovert of the family. This story takes place all the way back in the late 80s when I was 9 and my younger brother was 4. One of our favorite things to do was ride our bikes in the driveway. For those of you my generation, remember Big Wheels? That was the bike he rode at the time, while I had a neon pink Huffy bike. Therefore, my bike was much faster than his. So, to give him a thrill and to maintain my status as the best sibling ever, I would tie a jump rope around the handle of a little wagon and pull him up and down our long driveway. He loved it, I loved it, lots of giggles to be had. Finally, the day came when my mother caught us in the act. Needless to say, she put a quick end to this practice, and I was told explicitly not to pull my little brother around with my bike, as it wasn't safe. Initiate malicious compliance. I had very recently become tall enough to ride my mom's bike just as easily as my own. She told me not to pull my little brother around on my bike. She never said anything about hers. So, I tied the wagon to her bike and we continued our giggle fest. That is, until I took a curve too fast, the wagon flipped, and my little brother hit the pavement so hard, he knocked out his 2 front teeth. It took 3 years for those babies to grow back in. Oops. My mom didn't punish me because she had to admit I completely followed her directions. Although I think part of her decision may have come from the incredible amount of guilt I felt about hurting him. So, for 3 years running, did the little brother only want 2 front teeth for Christmas? Did he write a song about it that we hear every year? Because if he did, I got a bone to pick with him. That song is annoying as all get out. Gastro, you say? A few years back, I was developing a new vineyard, and due to the nature of the work, you end up going through a few men. I settled on a reasonably good crew of 8 for the after planting work that included a bloke we'll call Bobby. When Bobby started with me, he admitted that he had had a past that involved some heavy drug use, but claimed he was clean for his kids. His brothers must have other ideas, because he was soon back on the gear, and his work was slipping. Being casual, I don't mind being flexible with time worked, as long as there's communication. But Bobby was coming in late, shooting through early, and at times, simply not turning up. One Monday, he didn't turn up, and when I messaged him to find out what was going on, he said something along the lines of, "Sorry, mate, I've got a bit of a gastro," which is clearly BS given his history. He's likely been on a bender and woken up at some whore's place and doesn't know which side of town he's on. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I've got kids at daycare. I know that once they get crook, they are excluded for several days. Why should work be any different? I checked the federal government's health website that recommended exclusion for 3 days after symptoms passed to ensure the big isn't spread. This is too easy, so I replied to his message. That's pretty bad. I can't risk it going through the crew, and with the number of young kids on the farm, I can't risk it spreading to them. The government recommends 3 days to let it clear properly, so take the rest of the week to get over it, mate. Bobby's one-day sickie to get over his hangover had suddenly turned into a week's lost wages, and he couldn't argue because, as thick as he was, he knew he was just digging himself a hole. Amazingly, he seemed to have learnt his lesson and didn't try that BS on me again. So wait, this guy was too hungover to go work at a vineyard. I feel like those two paths cross eventually. Like, dude, just show up. Maybe you'll get a free bottle of wine at the end of it. And that's all the time we have today for these malicious compliance stories. If you liked any of the stories, make sure to click that like button. And if you can relate to them, make sure to let us know in the comments. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any more stories. Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch you later.